Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are tackling a hard truth that honestly often gets buried under a mountain of corporate jargon. Internal audit independence. Now this isn't just some buzzword you throw around in board meetings to sound good. It's actually a really fragile ecosystem, and it requires active, daily participation to survive. So if you've ever wondered what separates a fiercely independent truth-telling audit team from, a glorified corporate rubber stamp, you're in the right place. We're going to dig right into the specific reporting frameworks, the unwritten rules of boardroom dynamics, and the exact professional standards that make true independence possible. Let's get into it.
To really grasp the stakes here, we have to recognize one fundamental reality. Without independence, an internal audit function is completely useless. I mean it. As our source material lays out, without that independence, the function just can't provide unbiased assurance. It can't give you meaningful insights into governance, risk management, or those super complex control processes. Independence isn't just some nice-to-have feature of a healthy culture, it's the absolute prerequisite for finding and reporting the truth. Without absolute objectivity, your audit report is basically just a highly formatted piece of fiction.
So how do we build this blueprint of independence? Well, we're going to look at the 4 distinct groups whose job it is to construct, protect, and maintain this whole ecosystem. We've got the architects in management, the guardian, that's the Chief Audit Executive, the frontline audit staff, and finally, the overseers sitting on the board.
All right, let's kick things off with group number 1, the architects. This is all about executive management's strategic role in building the foundation. It's on them to make absolutely sure that auditors face zero scope limitations and absolutely no undue influence or pressure when they're trying to uncover the facts.
So how does management actually build that solid foundation? They use a pretty clever structural hack known as dual reporting. Think of this like the separation of church and state, but for business. Administrative reporting, so day-to-day HR stuff, approving timesheets, operational tasks, that naturally goes to executive management. But functional reporting, the actual oversight of the audit work, approving the plan, delivering the findings, that is reserved entirely for the board of directors and the audit committee. You literally can't effectively audit the person who holds the keys to your career and dictates your bonus, right? So this dual relationship is the absolute gold standard for preserving that independence.
But look, management's job doesn't end the second they drop an org chart and walk away. They actually have to provide auditors with completely unrestricted access to records, personnel, and physical assets. This is a massive requirement straight from the IIA's Standard 1110. Management also has to periodically review and approve the internal audit charter, guarantee an adequate budget with real resources, and, maybe most importantly, foster a deeply rooted culture where integrity and transparency are actually rewarded, not punished. Okay, so management builds the structure, but who actually polices it day to day? Who steps in when things start getting a little tense? That brings us to Section 2, the Guardian, better known as the Chief Audit Executive, or CAE.
The CAE is the ultimate watchdog of that dual reporting line we just talked about, and they're armed with some pretty powerful professional standards, like IIA Standard 1130. Now, this standard dictates that if independence or objectivity is impaired in fact or in appearance, the exact details have to be disclosed immediately to the appropriate parties. And I want you to notice the word appearance there. That's huge. Because even if an auditor is totally unbiased, if an outside observer thinks they might be compromised, the credibility of the entire audit is shot. The CAE has to have the guts to sound the alarm to the board the exact second a threat like that pops up.
And to effectively be this guardian, the CAE needs to be positioned at a really senior level within the organization. But beyond that, they absolutely must meet privately with the board or audit committee at least once a year. And to be clear, this isn't just a polite catch-up over coffee. It's a vital, uninterrupted, safe space. It creates this open, totally honest dialogue where the CAE can express their views independently, completely insulated from any fear of retaliation from management.
But the CAE isn't just there to sound alarms. They act as a proactive, defensive shield for the whole audit ecosystem. They aren't just sitting around waiting for problems. They strategically develop a comprehensive, risk-based audit plan. They enforce strict, unwavering compliance with the IIA Code of Ethics, set up a quality assurance and improvement program to constantly level up the team's work, and they continuously monitor those independent safeguards we mentioned. It's an intense, relentless role that demands constant vigilance.
All right, let's step out of the executive suite for a minute and head down to the front lines. Section 3, the boots on the ground. We're talking about the internal audit staff.
These are the folks dealing with the actual day-to-day realities and the messy interpersonal dynamics of the audit work. And working in this environment brings up a super common, really practical ethical dilemma for the staff on the ground. Think about this for a second. Can an internal auditor accept a gift from an engagement client? When a manager you're currently auditing offers you, say, a token of appreciation, where exactly is the boundary between being polite and being compromised? The trick here is knowing exactly where to draw that line. So, items like promotional pens, basic coffee mugs, things of nominal value that are basically available to all employees, those are generally fine. Why? Because honestly, a cheap plastic pen isn't going to subconsciously sway a trained professional's judgment. But the moment you accept client fees, expensive entertainment, or exclusive gifts, you completely shatter your independence. And the real danger here isn't just about the current audit. The psychology of reciprocity is wildly powerful. Accepting high-value items compromises your objectivity for any future engagements with that client too. It creates this lingering debt of gratitude, and that just has no place in an audit. Of course, navigating corporate gift etiquette is only one part of the equation. The frontline staff also have a strict mandate to maintain professional skepticism at all times. They have to question everything and take absolutely nothing at face value. If they stumble into any personal or professional conflicts of interest, IAI Standard 1120 says they have to disclose them immediately. And crucially, they have to completely avoid any involvement in operational decision-making. Look at it this way. If an auditor helps design a new payroll system, they can't turn around and objectively audit that same payroll system 6 months later. You just cannot grade your own homework. The exact moment you cross that line into operations, your independence is gone.
Okay, finally, we reach the top of the ecosystem, which really serves as the ultimate safety net for this whole operation. Section 4, the overseers. That means the board of directors and the audit committee.
Now, the board absolutely cannot afford to be a passive rubber stamp here. They have to actively engage with the reality of the business. The audit committee and the board must adopt a highly participatory approach toward the CAE and remain genuinely, consistently accessible. Because the CAE and the board are the ones collectively holding the line on independence, this direct open access is the literal cornerstone that holds the entire reporting framework together.
And when the board is truly accessible, it sets off this amazing, positive domino effect throughout the whole organization. Unrestricted access lets the CAE share vital info and raise red flags without a single moment of hesitation. And that freedom, it guarantees the delivery of truly objective, unbiased services. Ultimately, it empowers the audit team to provide constructive recommendations with total confidence. And in turn, that puts the board in a way stronger, fully informed position to actually oversee the organization. It's a complete closed-loop system of transparency. So, to pull all this together, an effective internal audit function doesn't just rely on one really brave person or one strict policy buried in an employee handbook. It takes the combined, overlapping efforts of this entire cast of characters. Management has to meticulously build the framework. The CAA actively monitors the safeguards and rings the alarm when threats pop up. The audit staff sticks strictly to ethics and professional skepticism, and the board caps it all off by providing meaningful, accessible support. If even one of these pillars crumbles, the credibility of the entire audit function goes down right along with it.
So I'll leave you with a quick thought about your own organization's ecosystem. Is your internal audit function truly independent, actively backed by all 4 of these vital pillars? Or is it just a dual reporting illusion sitting passively on an org chart somewhere? Because as we've seen in this explainer, an independent structure that isn't actively protected by management, the CAE, the staff, and the board, well, that's just a structure waiting to fail exactly when you need it most. Take a hard look at your own blueprints and keep asking the tough questions. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer.